You found it. Your home for the best content on your favorite team, the Fighting Tigers of LSU. Do us a favor. Subscribe to the channel. Leave your comments below. Be sure to smash that like button. On Thursday, LSU landed a commitment from linebacker Omar Speights, a all Pac-12 linebacker from Oregon State, team captain, starter, and like we talked about, it was a position of need for LSU. And it wasn't one they knew that they were going to need going into this transfer portal season because, as we talked about, they needed receiver. They were going to go after a deep threat. They got Aaron Anderson. We knew they needed to remake cornerback and defensive line. They did that. I've told you they're going to target veteran offensive line. We'll get to that in a second. The one that they weren't certain they were going to need was linebacker. And in large part, that's because they saw Micah Baskerville and Mike Jones go into the draft. They saw Colby Fields enter the transfer portal. They saw Demario Tolan, surprisingly, enter the transfer portal and leave for Auburn. So it left LSU thin at inside linebacker. And out of necessity, they went and signed a really good veteran all-conference inside linebacker. So now you look at guys like Harold Perkins and Greg Penn, along with Omar Speights, West Weeks, and the guys coming in. So they fortified that spot. All that to say, 247 has updated their transfer portal rankings, their transfer portal class rankings for this 2023 cycle. And your Fighting Tigers of LSU now hold the number one spot in the 247 transfer portal rankings. LSU has 11 commitments, 8 of them 4 stars, 2 of them 3 stars. And not only did they pass Florida State, who's number 2, they're a full 2 points ahead of Florida State. LSU's at 76.08 points, Florida State at 74.03, which is 2 points ahead of Auburn, which is third, at 72.09 points. And something to keep in mind also is the number of commits. LSU with 11, Florida State with 9. Auburn's got 13. So 2 additional players, and they're still behind LSU. Colorado's 4th, for context. They got 23 commits. I mean, it's roughly a third of their roster has turned over there with Deion Sanders. So all that to say, not only has Brian Kelly and his staff gone and gotten players to fortify their roster, they've improved the roster at those spots. Again, like I keep saying, it's not just about getting players. It's about getting starting caliber players at those spots. And that does sort of dovetail into the next conversation, which is LSU's not done in the portal. Remember, players right now, the opportunity to go into the portal, that's closed. The portal window closed on the 18th, so on Wednesday. But the players that entered the portal can choose their new school whenever they want. So you're going to continue to see more news of players announcing their next school. And there are going to be players that pick LSU. Some may wait until the summer. Some may wait until the February signing date. So we'll keep getting this news at a trickle. But one to keep an eye on now is Ja'Kai Clark. Ja'Kai Clark, just a bit ago, tweeted blessed with the prayer hands emojis, hashtag Go Tigers, and the LSU logo. If you don't know the name Ja'Kai Clark, that's okay. Ja'Kai Clark is the starting center at the University of Miami. He has started 42 games in his career at the U. And because of the COVID year, he will have 1 year of eligibility remaining. Again, this is not a commitment. Ja'Kai Clark hasn't picked LSU, but he has the LSU offer. And this does give you some insight into something we've discussed here. And I've said this ever since before the end of the season when people would ask, hey, what position was LSU going after? I wasn't guessing. Conversations I had with people within the program, I knew what they wanted. They wanted a deep threat receiver, Aaron Anderson, who could also help in special teams. He'll be your returner. They knew they were going to have to remake defensive line and cornerback. That's not exactly breaking news. They were certainly looking at a transfer tight end, which still could be in the cards for this team. They did, however, go sign a couple of freshman tight ends. And linebacker became a necessity. But they also knew, again, this was back in November when I had these conversations. They knew they were going to lose a lot of their backup offensive linemen, and they were going to have to address offensive line in the portal. And the surprising thing here, though, is this isn't a backup. This is a guy who you would be bringing in to start if, in fact, he does pick LSU. And maybe that's confusing because Charles Turner really wrestled away that job and played well. And Marlon Martinez late in the season got some reps at center and played really well, played a lot in the bowl game, and they like him a lot. So LSU likes their first 6 guys. But I remember having this conversation so many times with Mike Detillier. And every year in training camp, after the Super Bowl year, every year, the Saints would bring in linebackers to compete with Scott Shanley. Jonathan Vilma was set. Fujita was in there, but they always brought in a weak side backer to compete with Scott Shanley every year. And I'll never forget the analogy. I always say, man, they keep putting someone in and Shanley keep throwing him out the boat. Because every year, they brought in someone to compete with him, and Shanley kept beating him out. But the point is, in the NFL, nobody is ever standing pat. You are either getting better every day or you are getting worse every day. No one ever just stays the same in the NFL. Status quo does not exist. Every day you have to be looking at players that could be better than the players you currently have. And the transfer portal has made roster evaluation in college football very similar to the NFL. It's no longer bring in 25 freshmen every year and build that talent over 3 years, develop them. It's now about what guys can help me win immediately where I'm weak. Go get them in the portal and then bring in dynamic young players who can help me immediately, and where you feel like you have an opportunity to get guys that can come in and grow and develop, you do it. But it's no longer about developing guys over 3 and 4 and 5 years. There will be some of those in the program, but that's not the core of your program anymore. It just can't be. So I know that may, look, listen, some of us may not like that. You might be romantic about the way things were. It doesn't matter how you feel. This is the reality. The transfer portal's here. It's not going anywhere. So you got to use it. You got to use it to your advantage. And Brian Kelly and his staff are 100% doing that. This is a picture-perfect illustration of how to manage your roster. Now, this doesn't mean when you get to the fall, they're going undefeated and win the national championship. You have to coach them up, and you have to put in game plans, and you have to execute on game days and all that stuff. But roster management, that's something that got away from LSU's last 2 head coaches at times. It certainly got away from Orgeron. We know that. But it did with Les Miles as well. You know, we famously kind of joke about the time where LSU had more scholarship kickers on the roster than linebackers. There were times that Les would, at times, he would become infatuated with star rankings, and you'd have 17 scholarship wide receivers out there. That's great. It looks good on signing day as far as your ranking, and all those guys are really talented, but you didn't throw the ball. Give me some offensive linemen, man. Give me some linebackers. Give me guys that can help me win. So what you're seeing right now, though, is a very intentional approach to assess where on the roster you might be able to improve and what players are out there that can help me improve today. And that's what they've done. That's why LSU has the #1 transfer portal class ranking, and it's why they're not done. And I've told you this for 2 months now. They're going to go after offensive linemen, so this should come as no surprise. We'll see if they can get Ja'Kai Clark, but if you do, you have it's not to say that Charles Turner is a bad player. He played really well. It's not to say Marlon Martinez is a bad player. He's certainly coming along. But if you have an opportunity to add a center who has started 42 career games, you are better at that position than you are right now. So you absolutely do it. It's the nature of how this game has got to be played right now and how you manage and build a roster. And Brian Kelly and his staff are doing it to perfection right now. So Tigers move up to the #1 transfer portal class in the country in 247, nosing past the team they're going to meet in the opener, Florida State. They've dished out another offer today to Ja'Kai Clark, an offensive lineman, a center out of the University of Miami. Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact. And be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.